Extension as the ag agent here in Wise County. And our office is right south of the Sweetie Pie's big parking lot there. So a little brick building. If you ever need anything, I'll try to find some cards. I'll pass out before everybody gets out of here. But I promise I won't keep you over 2 hours.
The library closes at 7.
At 7?
At 7.
Oh no, we're not gonna do the other. Alright. Alright, let's get started then. What is composting? I think we all have a good idea of what it is. I mean, really all it is just breaking down all kinds of organic material. Breaking it down to where it's more like organic matter. And we all know organic matter does real well, makes plants grow good. So that's what we're after when we're composting. It'll benefit your garden, your flower beds, anywhere you want to put them, your lawns or wherever. So it provides a lot of good nutrients for a plant. And most times, if it's good enough compost, you don't have to fertilize. Or don't have to fertilize as much. It's going to improve the soil characteristics. If you have a sandy land, if you compost it, it's going to build, it's going to make that thicker and more permeable. If you have clay, it's going to loosen it up, allow more air into the soil. So it's really good on having the physical characteristics of the soil. It increases the soil capacity to hold water and nutrients. And like I said, it loosens it up and lets air get in there. So there's 3 elements we have to have, and we'll go over those here in a minute to make a good compost. So what method is right for you? Well, it really depends on how much room you have. If you have a nice big backyard and you're putting it on a garden, then you have a lot of space. If you don't have much space, you got to come up with another idea, and we have all of them here for whatever situation you're in. But what do I want to compost? How much waste do I have a week? Kitchen waste coming out of the house, and we'll talk about all of those here in a minute. How and where do I want to use the compost? I'm using my garden, my lawn, my flower bed. When I say garden, I'm talking about one in the soil or a raised bed or a keyhole garden or whatever. And you can use this anywhere. So how much time can I spend on it a week? Another thing. And what's my U factor? U factor. Yee. That's how you say it, right? So sometimes it can get to stinking, and there's a reason it does that, and I'll tell you about it here in a while. How committed am I to composting? It's going to take time and money. It takes a whole lot more time than money, I can tell you that. What are the types of compost bins? There's a trench composting. I'm going to talk about these here in a minute in more detail. There's a binless composting. There's a 3-bin system that I really like myself. I think it's the best one. There's a tumbler compost, as you was talking about earlier. We go up there and crank it, put it in there, and keep it mixed up. There's also commercial posting bins. So here's the trench composting. As you can see, right here we're just digging out about 8 inches of dirt, 6 to 8 inches, and we're filling it in with a lot of different things we have in the house as far as kitchen scraps. There are a couple of things we don't want to use, and I'll just go ahead and say it now. Milk products, dairy products is one. It takes them forever to break down. Meat, fat, stuff like that, we don't want to use. And we don't want to use our, I'll say that for later. Anyway, what they're doing here, year 1, you're digging a trench in the middle, and you're planting your plants on this side of the walkway, or here they're just planting plants on both sides. But you can do it however you want to. But always rotate this every year. So year 2, you would dig a trench there, put your plants in the middle where you put your compost the year before, and then use that for walkway or plants. And then year 3, you can switch it over there. So 3 years, you'll have compost in each one of those. And you can also add compost to the top of the soil, which is not going to hurt anything. Here's a binless pile, which is the way a lot of people do it. They just pile it up in a corner, throw stuff in there, go through your eggshells and peanut hulls, leaves and branches and whatever, as long as they ain't too big branches. It should be several feet wide. Really, it needs to be about 5 feet at the base and about 3 foot tall. So it'll have enough energy there to get hot enough. So the heat is what really makes good compost. So how hard to maintain? Because you can't keep the temperatures right unless you got it hemmed up in a corner and put something on one side of it, and just one side's open. So it takes several months to a year, to get compost out of this kind of pile. Now this 3-bin system, the one I like the best, they say a 3x3 or a 5x5x5, but I say a 4x4x4 is really the best. Somehow or other, it just makes for the right amount of material in there to heat up, to get enough oxygen in there, and it's easy to access. So what you're doing really is you got one to fill, you got one that's cooking, and you got one that's ready that you can use. So each year or each 6 months, however long it takes for this compost, you got a bin that's ready, and you got one that you're filling and putting your stuff in to get it where it's cooking. Is where your next one is. So, real good way to do it. You can do it out of a lot of different materials. Here's some out here. It's got the pallets. The main thing I want to do, I like to use something, either the pallets that's got more boards on it to keep coons and whatnot out of it. So they'll get in the front. And I have even seen some that has a little pallet gate on the front that you can use. You can do it however you want to, but this is the way it works best, just leave the front open and make at least the outside of it where the bigger varmints can't get in there and tear it up. So, tumblers, yeah.
On this 3-bin, once you fill one up, then you don't touch it anymore, or
Well, you're
until you use it?
yeah, you're filling it up when you get it full. And you've got these layers, which I'll show you here in a minute. You start off with the leaves or something dry that's brown material, and you put layers in there and get it built up. Then there's a lot you have to do to it. I'm going to tell you what you have to do to get it to a point you can use it. All right, tumblers. These are somewhat expensive, real limited capacity. If you don't have much space, this is the way to go. And it also keeps out rodents and other insects and pests. All right, commercial composting bins. They're really difficult to get into to turn. And we have to have air, and we have to turn these so we get the right amount of air, water mix, and nitrogen mix, so that it'll start cooking and heat up. So it's like I said, it's a really good choice if you've got limited space. Choosing a site for the pile. You want to place it on bare ground. You don't want to ever put it on concrete or asphalt. When it starts heating up, it needs to be able to dissipate some of that heat. And yeah, a lot of it goes out the top and sides, but a lot of it tries to go below. So we need to put it on bare ground where, if you want to call it breathing room or whatever, so that heat is dissipated out of there, and it just works better. Until you get more organisms coming up from the soil. So the organisms start decomposing organic materials that we put in there. They need both soil and atmosphere, and the pile should not be directly exposed to the sun or the wind, the rain, and you sure don't want to put it where there's standing water, because you'll get way too much moisture on the bottom and not enough on the top, and you got to continually turn it. Turn it over so it dries. It does dry. What happens when you get it separated with water? Molds, and the air is not able to get in there. That's why it molds, because you can't get enough air in there to do the job it's supposed to do. So And the direct sun, it's okay, the sun coming from the top, that's okay. But you don't want sun coming from all sides if you can help it, because it decreases your microbiome, your microbes that help break this stuff down. So choose a convenient location to allow you to be able to turn the pile and, you know, move it, have plenty of room. And leave space between the piles if you're just piling it out there on the ground. Leave you space between, yes ma'am?
So a question with that, since it's not supposed to be in total sunlight, with a trench compost style, are you digging that trench and then covering it with?
Yes ma'am,
Okay.
yep, you're covered with soil, yeah. And most of us don't have, I mean, it depends on how big it is, but if you dig that trench and you have enough stuff to fill it up, or, you know, pretty close, then put your soil back on it immediately. If not, we'll leave it there until you get it almost full, and put the soil back on.
How thick of what should cover it so it still gets air and stuff?
They say 2 to 3, 4 inches.
It's
Yeah,
not tons.
that's not much. Yeah, and another reason, you know, and one thing I don't like about the trench deal is because you put it out there and it starts stinking, and guess who's out there digging it? Your dog. All right, so here's some materials we use for composting. A lot of it comes out of our kitchen. Fruits and vegetable trimming and coffee grounds, filters, eggshells, pecan hulls, or any kind of nut hull. Those are things that we want to put in there. Things that we don't want to put in there, like I said earlier, is animal products like grease, fat, or meat trimmings. It just takes forever to break down, and also causes more problems from varmints trying to get in there. And of course, your dairy products, you don't want to, they break down very slowly. So, and they're going to attract rats. And it also has an unpleasant odor when you put those ingredients in there. It's doesn't smell very good. Yes, ma'am.
You said nut holes, so like pecan, I have a pecan tree, but I have noticed a lot of pecan weevils on it, and I was thinking about putting that in the compost, but then I second guessed, cause I thought, well, there might be a lot of bugs in there, would that be?
Now, when it heats up,
Mhm.
it'll heat up hot enough to kill those
Oh, really?
eggs and they'll destroy the eggs and most of the weed seeds.
Okay, cause I got buckets that I made my kids collect, so I'm glad
Yeah.
for something to use.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
you can drill a hole.
The whole thing, the whole, like.
Well, it's better if you crack it
Crack them.
or just
Okay,
Stop them.
stop them, so
Yeah.
they just open and then.
because it's going to break down a lot faster. You know, you got to put a whole pecan in there. It's going to take it forever to break down.
But if it's
But if you
smaller-
crack them and bust them up, then it's not going to take
It's
it.
okay to put the meat out.
It's better not to, but yeah, you can.
Yeah,
I mean,
because-
as long as you bust it up, it's really not going to matter on the meat, hull, whatever. All right, good question. We have a lot of this around the house, right? Especially in the spring, summertime. A lot of grass clippings, really good source of nitrogen. So, how many of you fertilize your yard? No, you don't fertilize your yard? You need to get over here. Well, my wife makes me fertilize ours, so we have St. Augustine over most of it. She likes it pretty and mowed, so we have plenty of grass clippings. Yeah, like I said, it's a really good source of nitrogen, so makes really good. It helps make good compost when you mix it in layers. You can mix green, fresh clippings with soil or drop link material, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And the main thing is you don't want this to get too tight, the settle and get too tight because you don't get any air in there. So you want to mix some dry stuff with it as you go. Don't just dump the whole garbage can in there, and then put stuff on top of it. We got a methodical way to do this to make really good compost to make where it doesn't take as long. So, you know, you can make good compost in a couple, 3 months. If you do it right, if it's turned, if you got the right amount of moisture on it, right amount of air, you can make good compost in 2 or 3 months. But a lot of times, the way we do it, it's gonna take a year. So, you know, 2 or 3 months to a year, this is something that we do that's working for us while we're doing something else. You know, all we gotta do is add ingredients in there, turn it, make sure it's wet enough, getting hot enough, and then while we're sleeping, it's still working. So, compaction prevents air, so just remember to mix up with it. Dry leaves is good to mix with it. And my wife was supposed to be here tonight, but she had something come up. At our house, we have lots of trees, okay, lots of post oaks, and you can't see the ground anywhere. I think they're about that deep, and she hates it. Anyway, I told her, I said, well, there's nothing, I always rubbed it in, you know, I said, there's nothing you can do about it. You can grab all you want to, they ain't going away. Anyway, yeah, we have a lot of leaves here in the fall, especially from our oak trees and our maples and different things. But I tell you what, if you're going to use leaves, don't use them whole, okay? If you can, put them out there, or if you're mowing your yard or they're in your yard, get your mower out. At least, I've got a mulcher on my mower, so I mow them and it chops them up, okay? This same principle as the nuts. You crush them up, it's going to compost faster. If you crush these leaves, it's going to compost faster. So crush them up if you can. If you can't, put them in there the way they are. You'd be surprised how long it takes a leaf to decompose. It's a long time. I piled some up out there. I was raking with my tractor and made a big pile, and you can dig in there and you can pull out whole leaves still. That was a year ago. So anyway, like I said, you can use your rotary lawnmower to chop them up a little finer. All right, what about manure? I have a lot of people ask me, you know, can I use cat and dog manure or feces in my compost or on my garden? I always say no. You know, I don't know about you, but probably the worst smelling manure there is dog and cats. Yeah, but if you have chicken's real good. Chicken manure.
Do you have to wait a certain time before you put the horse or cow manure in there? I know chicken's gonna go right away. Do that.
You know, it's better if it's not real green, you know, fresh. It's better if you get it out, or you know,
And it's gonna break.
if you bust it up with a tool or something and rake it or whatever, and then whatever, you know, just make sure that it's not pretty liquid. Because whenever you get this compost going, if you can pick that up and squeeze water out of it, it's too wet. So the more liquidy stuff you put in there, the more you're going to have to turn it, and the longer it's going to take to compost. So yeah, chicken, cow, and horse manure is real good. Great nitrogen source on all three of those. Which one do you think's the best?
The horse,
No.
no chicken,
Nope.
a cow.
Yeah, that's a lot of research has been done. Don't get me wrong, they're all good, but really cow manure,
It's the best.
that's what we grew up in our garden back home. It was a truck pass. My dad had 3 of us to take care of it, besides all the ranch work we had to do. So we had about a 2 or 3 acre garden, and every fall or sometime during the winter, we'd go clean the pens out, put it out in the garden, rake it around, spread it all out.
So you can just put it straight on the garden stuff.
Yes, ma'am. Better if you put it out there and then till it in. Yeah. Anything, even compost, if you put it on the garden.
Just with cow or chicken and
All
horses
of
as
it.
well?
All of it.
Okay. You can just put it straight on.
Yeah, you put it straight on.
What about goats?
Just don't put it very deep.
What about goats?
Goats? Yeah, I mean, you can use that. It's just, how do they come? They're a hard round pill, right? Yeah. So it's gonna take longer for it to break down. If you can smudge them up somehow or take a hair to them,
Rabbits too?
those two.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's still good fertilizer. It just, takes it longer to break down if you just put it up in the ground.
But you speed it up when you just break it down yourself, right? You get-
Or put it in the compost pile is best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can break it down a little bit, put it in the compost pile. You know, say you got a cow pie that big, it's not hard as a brick, but it's
It's hard.
hard.
Yeah.
If you can stomp it up or take a shovel and beat it up towards little smaller pieces and put it in the compost pile, it's a lot better. Yep. So pretty much anything we put in there, we want it broken up and as fine as we can get it, without going to a lot of extra trouble. You know? We don't want to spend all our life out there stirring the compost pile. All right, so what about wood shavings and sawdust? I can tell you one thing not to do. Don't put wood shavings and sawdust directly on your garden. Because what it does, it depletes the nitrogen. Yep, depletes the nitrogen out of it, and it ties it up. Okay, I said it wrong. It ties it up, it doesn't deplete it. It makes it where the plant can't use it. So, in order to get away from that, you want to compost your sawdust. If you have to go somewhere and look for sawdust, don't use it. If you've got sawdust that's right there, or your neighbor's building cabinets or whatever, and you got access to sawdust, that's fine. Don't go out and buy it.
Does it matter if it's been treated, like something?
And that's another reason. We used to build houses and have a cabinet shop, and we ripped that plywood that had the chemicals in there, and the glue. Yeah, and that's another reason I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I just have to mention it because it is an option.
What about using like wood shavings with the chickens? Like the punching?
Yeah, that's
So your compost-
some of the bedding that you get like
Yeah.
tractor ply.
Yeah.
You can use it, but put it in compost. Yeah, don't put it straight on the garden. It's all gonna tie the nitrogen. Even if you run, you can buy that chipwood, where they stick the branches in there and it grinds it up.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. And it's a lot finer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna tie the nitrogen up in the soil. But you might as well not even compost. You're gonna do that. I mean, that's why the compost is to break that down. And another secret to breaking the sawdust down is adding nitrogen on top of it. Makes it hotter, makes it break down faster. So just add a little nitrogen to it, speed up, decomposition.
What about like hay and straw? Can you use that?
Hay and straw? Oh yeah, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Does that do the same thing as the wood chips? Is it
No.
trying to, okay.
No.
Doesn't,
No, hay and straw, no.
Is it considered a nitrogen or like, where is it?
Hay and straw, if it's dry, it's considered a brown
Oh, okay.
product.
Okay.
If it's green, then it's probably considered a green product. So we got our browns and our greens we're trying to mix in. I'll get to it here in a minute. But pretty much anything that grows in the earth, you can compost. If Mother Nature grows it, you can compost it. Here's your green and brown stuff. Over here on the green, that's going to be your nitrogen. And over here on the brown is going to be your carbon. So we got to have three things. We got to have water, we got to have carbon, and we got to have nitrogen. And there's two more that we have to have. Two more things, not elements. These are the three elements we have to have. What?
Air?
Yeah, I said air. Air, carbon, and nitrogen.
you said water.
Water?
Bugs,
Oh, yeah.
microbes. They're the ones that takes it, chews it, and excretes it. Yep, breaks it down. So we already mentioned the fruit and veggie scraps, eggshells, tea bags, fresh scraps, anything, garden trash is okay unless you have some kind of disease in it. If your tomatoes have blossom end rot or whatever, like tomatoes do, don't use that. Burn them. If everything was good and healthy and it's gone down and you chopped it down and want to put it in your compost pile, that's fine. Just don't use anything that's diseased. And don't use anything that's had pesticide or herbicides on it. We don't want that in there either. Like I said earlier, most of your weed seeds and other materials are going to get hot enough to kill it. And most of the diseases, but some of these diseases that come in pet poop they're pretty tough to kill. So That's why I don't recommend pet food in there. Your brown materials, that's like your chopped dried leaves, your dried grass clippings, dry hay, if you have to use sawdust, nuts and shells, pine cones, you have pine trees around the house. You can put all that in there, pine cones, pine needles. That actually makes pretty good composting material. But the pine cones, again, you probably want to bust them up. Like a sledgehammer too. Anyway, shredded newspaper, another thing. Any kind of paper product, really. Because we all know paper products are going to deteriorate relatively
What
fast.
about cardboard?
Yeah.
Cardboard? Is that enough? Would you need to like tear it into small pieces, or is that just?
Yeah, I mean,
Would it take too long?
I don't know if I've ever seen anybody try that cardboard. But, I mean, I think it'd work, it just may take longer.
Yeah.
It would work, but it's, it's a paper product. So, alright, so building your pile, I've got a slide here in a minute that shows you the different layers, but, the first layer you want to start out with is the coarse layer. That's your brown. So, start out with branches and twigs. Don't get big ones, okay? I'm talking about the small branches, the big as you, no bigger than your fingers. That's going to allow oxygen to set to circulate underneath. If you put those green grass clippings down there, what's going to happen? It's going to smother it, right? Smother it right on the ground. You're not going to get any air circulating under it, and it's critical you get air under the first layer. You want it porous, so you get some air in there. The second layer should be about 6 to 10 inches of finer plant material. Now again, leaves, grass clippings, and kitchen scraps. Then the third layer should be 1 inch layer of soil or manure. You can use either one, or you can use both. So really we have 3 layers, first layer, second layer, third layer. And we can do that over and over until we get it high enough. Okay, here's this chart here, or picture. You put your dry leaves on the bottom, your kitchen waste, your garden debris, if you have any, good place to put them. Then put your livestock manure or soil. And then start over. Kitchen waste, or put your leaves or kitchen waste, switch them either way. Sawdust, you want that on top because you want to be able to add nitrogen to the top of it to get it to break down faster, but don't do that. Just put your sawdust out there in the pile, put nitrogen on it, keep it wet if you have to use sawdust. You can repeat, like I said, you can repeat the second layer until you get up to about 5 feet tall. 4 to 5 feet tall is a good area. It gives you enough area to keep it wet, to keep it dry when you turn it. So, and it only needs to be 4 foot square is perfect. That's about what a pallet is. It's about 4 foot. So that's the perfect size. So, and what this does, it provides a real good environment for the microorganism that's going to help you break this down. So, anytime when you get below the 3.5, 4 feet diameter, it's going to take a long time or a lot more time to decompose. Here's some round bins, kind of round, and they're about 5 foot in width. As you can see here, this is the one they're adding. Can you recognize some of that? Banana peel, a few things there. Okay. And then here, it's more, this is hard to see in this picture, but anyways, less recognizable here. And this one, so that was cooking. This one over here is ready. We've been using out of that. So taking care of your compost pile, you got to add the ingredients, the right ingredients, and the right amount, and I'll tell you more about the carbon nitrogen ratio here in just a minute. You got to maintain proper temperature, proper moisture, so it'll heat up. You want to get this up to anywhere from 90 to 150 degrees. Now when you get to 150 degrees, that's kind of the danger zone warning sign, right? if any of you ever had any hay, or your dad or granddad had hay in the barn, put it in there 2 grain, 25% moisture. When it gets up to 150, 60, it can spot what's called spontaneous combustion. So, and we don't hardly ever see a compost pile catch on fire, but I guess it could. So anyway, how active are you? You know, if you're not very active, just let the pile sit. It's going to take a lot longer for it to decompose and make compost. But if you want to go out there and stir it pretty often, reach down in there and make sure the moisture's right. Maintain the right moisture level. Check the temperature. Make sure you get it, the carbon to nitrogen ratio around 30-1, which I'll show you that here in just a minute. You know, it can take as few months, as many as a few months to, or longer to complete. But it's going to be a lot faster than if you just leave it sitting out there and don't do anything to it.
When you say turn pile often, is that like every other day or like every week?
It just depends. I mean, you go out there and, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah, it depends. You gotta, it's a visual appraisal is what I call it.
Okay.
You gotta look at it and see what's going on. Yeah. Feel it. If you can wring water out of it, it's too wet, so we need to stir it more. If you go out there and it's moist or whatever, but no water drips out of your hand, then it's probably just about right. If you go out there and it's really dry, then you need to add water. Add water. So it's really a look and feel, you know.
Okay.
Sometimes smell,
Okay.
because it starts stinking.
Turn it a little bit.
Yeah. Starts stinking, that means it's not getting, it's anaerobic conditions,
Okay.
where it's without oxygen, so it starts to stink.
Yeah.
So if we put some air in there, then that gets oxygen in there and makes it aerobic. So that,
It shouldn't be stinking. Like
No, it shouldn't be
shouldn't have
stinking,
any smell like that.
now the meat and the cheese and all that will have a knockdown odor. If it's just from being too wet and not enough air in there, it's gonna smell like rotten eggs.
For eggshells, like, would you recommend just kind of rinsing them and washing them and then crunching them in?
Oh, you don't have to.
No?
You don't have to.
That's what
Yeah. Just give them before you put them in there.
Yeah.
You can put them in there without doing that. You can put anything in there without crushing it or breaking it up.
Yeah.
But it's just gonna take long.
Yeah. No, we want quicker.
You know, if you don't need it,
I'm all quicker.
I mean, if you got 3 piles going, you know, whatever. It's also timing too, because how long does it take you to get from starting the pile to the 3rd pile being able to use it? You know, how long does it take you? I mean, might take me 8 months,
True.
might take you a year.
So are you talking like that 3-bin system where you just
3
fill
bin.
one up and when you're done
Yeah.
filling that one, you go to the next one, then you fill that one, then you go to the next one with that layer system?
Right. If you're a avid composter or want to do this, to put in your garden every year, then that's the way to do it.
Okay. 'Cause
If
you always
you-
have something in the.
If you just want to put some in your garden or your flower beds one time every 2 or 3 years, then just put you a pile out there and just keep adding to it. Sprinkle the water in when it gets dry, turn it when it gets too wet, get the temperature about right. You can stick a pitchfork or a hoe or anything down in there and leave it a little while and come back and you can feel that and kind of tell how hot it is. If it's 150 degrees, it's going to be hot. When you touch that metal, it's ooh. But if it's just warm to the touch, it's not hot.
It seems easier to have like the 3-sided bin,
Well,
cause that way you can move it.
Yeah.
Cause it's heavy. I'm like, are you gonna just stir it like from the top or?
Yeah, you just have to go
Poke it?
in the layers
No,
and it's
okay.
kind of rolled around.
Okay.
Yeah, it can get, stirring it can be a problem. The main thing is getting underneath and trying to puff it up a little bit,
Oh, okay.
where it gets some air, because the air and the steam will go up most of the time, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, we want to, where we can get some air under it. And, yeah, just take it, if you have to, rake some out of it. It ain't gonna hurt it. Rake it out, get it where it gets some air, and then shove it back in there. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and you'll find a way that works best for you. just takes some trial and error. Yes, sir.
How important when you're building it is to keep those layers, like they were talking about, the different materials and layers, rather than just add when you get stuff.
Well, I mean, you can add when you get stuff, you just wanna, you wanna keep maybe a pile of, brown stuff there, dried stuff.
Three bin thing.
So if you go out there and you put a bunch of green stuff in, then you can get you a couple of shovels of the brown and put it there with it, kind of stir it up a little bit, mix it up. But you want it mixed, because if you don't, it's gonna either be not hot enough or too hot. So we need to mix it.
So when you build make the layers, then you go ahead and mix it after that.
Well, you let it sit there for a good while until it starts cooking. Yeah.
So like when I clean my chicken coop, okay, I'm gonna take the stuff, the manure, and put it in there, but I wanna put a layer of green and then a layer of brown when I'm doing that, so I'm not.
So you're just not
I'll
putting all
balance-
chicken food.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh wait, when was the last time?
Right.
And then it gets too much.
Yeah, just keep it mixed.
Okay.
Yeah. If you put a bucket full of chicken manure, then you'll get you a bucket full of green grass clippings or some kitchen scraps or whatever, vegetables, fruit, stuff like that, and put a little bit in there with it. And this kind of, as you build it, kind of keep it mixed. You know, mixed as far as turning it and mixed as far as ingredients you're putting in there.
Okay, let's say I don't have a lot of kitchen scraps at that day.
Those my chickens.
Huh?
These are my chickens.
You know, just like, if it, like a few days pass, or like, you know, that same week I put another layer, is that okay? Just like within that same time frame, or
I
is it
mean-
just something to kind of you keep in your mind?
Pretty much what we're trying to do is, we're trying to use our kitchen scraps and things that come out or around the house.
Yeah,
So we're using the green stuff. We're gonna keep a pile or two, or go gather some leaves
okay,
for our brown stuff.
okay,
We're not putting our brown stuff in and looking for green stuff.
okay,
We're putting our green stuff in and looking for brown stuff.
okay, alright.
All right, so here's the required elements I told you about earlier. Air, water, nitrogen, and carbon. Carbon is an organic material. And then you gotta have the microorganisms. Very important. So the microorganisms need a favorable environment. They need air. Air is the only part that can't be added. Can't go to Walmart, buy a can of air and pour it on your compost pile, right? So turning the pile off is going to provide you the right amount of air. It's going to speed up your composting process. If there's too little air, it's going to become compact. If there's too much green, it's going to become compact, and you're not going to get enough air in there. So when you cause that, it's going to cause anaerobic decomposition to occur, and it's going to produce an odor like that of rotting eggs. So it's going to be a sulfurous smell. So we want to make sure we have the right amount of air. Water, you can have too much water. If you have a compost pile sitting on the ground and the water floods around it, that's the wrong place to have it. Get it where it drains. At least, you know, you can't have it because it rains on it, that's fine. But we don't want it sitting in the water. When it sits in the water, we might as well not even do it.
So then we're higher ground, because I have my house kind of dumps.
Yeah, higher ground or sloping ground where the water can go away from it. Good drainage. You just want to have good drainage. And during the summer, you know, it's going to be drier, so you probably have to add some water to it. So depends on the season of the year. Depends on how dry or wet the stuff you put in there is. As to how much water you need to add or not add. So, but like I said, you know, you can tell with your hand, you can reach down in there. I put a glove on or something. I got AI gloves to put on. I reach down there and get it down. If I can squeeze it, water comes out of it. I need water, right? Nope, don't need water. Need to stir it some more, let it dry out. Okay, nitrogen. All your organic materials are going to have varying ratios of nitrogen and carbon. So this ratio influences how fast the microorganisms will be able to break it down. If the carbon nitrogen ratio is too high, it's gonna be really slow breaking down. If the ratio is too low, the pile is gonna lose some nitrogen to the air in the form of ammonia gas, and it's gonna be slow. But we try to get the ideal ratio, and that's 30 to 1 or less. And there are some products or some ingredients here that we can use to accomplish that. Look why, another reason I like sawdust or wood chips, look how much carbon they have compared to nitrogen. Carbon's harder to break down, right? So we want something like coastal hay, alfalfa hay, we don't have much of that around here, but coastal hay, we have a lot of that. Even Sudan, if it ain't too big a stem. I mean, it'll work, but the bigger the stem, the slower it's gonna break down. Food waste, that's what we use around the house. Grass clippings, another thing around the house, and leaves. But look at the grass clippings, 19 to 1, rotted manure is 20 to 1, and the fruit waste is 35, and food waste is 15. Those are really four really good categories right there to use for compost pile. Now, corn stalks, we start getting up, and leaves also are hard to break down, like I said before. But if we crunch them up, shred them, mow them, pulverize them, whatever, it's going to be a whole lot better. It's still going to have that same nitrogen, carbon to nitrogen ratio, but it's not going to take near as long to break down because we've broken it up. So anyway, food waste, grass clippings, fruit waste, rotted manure, or manure that is not fresh out of the back of the cow, the horse, goat, chicken. All right, break down organic material. As microorganisms begin to break down the organic material, the heat is generated, okay? When it starts breaking it down, heat is generated. That's what makes compost. So within a few days, the compost pile should reach an internal temperature of from 90 to 160 degrees. And that's going to take care of most of your insect eggs, your weeds, seeds, and lots of disease organisms. It's going to, if it gets up to 156 degrees, it's going to kill them. So we don't have to worry about that. There are some organisms that it takes a lot hotter than that to kill them. And some of those are found in dog poo. So that's why another reason I suggest that. Okay, stirring the pile, I think we've talked about it enough, but you know, in the winter, you probably not going to stir it as often. In the summer, you probably will. Depends on how the weather is. So, you know, how much rain you get. 90 to 120 days is a good timetable to start getting some good compost we can use. And that's using the layer method. Like I said, it can take anywhere from 3 months to a year to get good compost. Just depends on what we put in the pile. So if we pay more attention to what we put in the pile, we could get some good compost sooner rather than later. So here's the steps. As you see those 3 bins already, those 3 5-foot bins, most of the ingredients were still recognizable in that one, right? That's the early stage. I mean, that on top had these, it started breaking down a little bit, but not for microbes. Middle stage decomposition, the ingredients are less recognizable. We have more microbial activity. The late stage, the ingredients are not hardly recognizable at all, and most times not. We start getting some fungus. You'll see some white fungus and stuff growing out of the piles, whatever. That doesn't hurt anything. And you'll get some of these too, these actinomycetes. And that's just another, we don't need to know that. The later stage decomposition, all the ingredients should be turned into compost, ready to use. So, curing, the pile begins cooling, and compost becomes ready to use. So we've got to let it cool after it's cooked and done its thing and ready to take out the oven. We've got to let it cool off before we put it on the soil. So here's some golden ratios for success. A ratio of 4 parts browns to 1 part greens. So that's 5 20s in 100. So that's 20%. We want 20% green and 80% browns. That's the perfect ratio to make good compost. Work when you're putting it on the soil or gardens or whatever. Work 1 to 2 inches of compost into the top 3 to 6 inches of soil for new vegetable garden sites. If you've never put a garden there before, then that's what you need to do. If you have an existing garden, just put a half to an inch. That's all you need. And you do that every year. Existing flower beds, you even, I'd say less. I think it said quarter. I read one time it said a quarter to a half inch, but I just, a half to 1 inch, you know. If you go out there and put the compost out and you cover the ground and you can't see the ground anymore, you know, it ain't very thick. But just put it to where you can't see the ground, soil. In flower beds, you don't need it even that thick. It's going to do a lot of good. You can even put it on your lawn if you want to. New lawns, you want to put 1 to 2 inches. Existing lawns, it doesn't take very much. And it's got a lot of the nutrients that our plants need, even the lawns, grass.
How about, for the existing vegetable garden? I guess, how much ahead of time should you put it before you start planting your seeds?
Yeah, a good time to do this in fall or anytime during the winter.
Okay, so once you have your compost, then you put the compost 1 inch out on top of your, garden area.
Yeah.
Would you wanna till that in or just leave it on top?
I would till it in if I can.
Till in.
It's gonna be better till it in. That way you won't lose any of it. You know, if it comes in rain and it washes it away, or if wind blows real hard.
Right, what if like, you kind of got a little bit late or, started it now and within 3 months?
You can do it
Would
right
like to
before
put it
you.
there,
You can
but
do it right
it's-
before you plant.
Right
Yeah,
before you
it's
plant
fine.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's
Anytime from the
okay.
fall up to you plant, or
Okay,
even after you plant. You put it in after you plant.
like on side dressing, okay.
Yeah. That's not gonna hurt the plants. It's gonna do them good. Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna provide. It's something they like. It's like putting chocolate out there in front of kids. They're gonna
We'll take
come
it.
running.
We'll
Here.
take it.
Yeah.
In time.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Compost is candy to the plants.
Well, anytime it rains, those nutrients will go down into
Yes, ma'am.
soil.
Well, if you have sandy land that leaches real good, then probably gonna put compost out there more often. If you got clay land that's not very permeable, doesn't go through it very fast. You get by with less. So if you got sandy soil, just yeah, me too.
Great.
Yeah, and some of it's hard as a rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that little
I think it's,
clay mix in there.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's put this out here, on here today. It wasn't on there, but I thought, that's pretty interesting. So here's some chemical and physical properties of the compost that we're using. So organic matter, it's usually, it's usually greater than 30%. And that's good. That's what we look for finished compost. Well, at least 30% organic matter. Carbon and nitrogen ratio, we like to have it 30 to 1, that's perfect.
Is
Well,
there
we
a
want
way to
to-
test that?
There is, yeah, in a lab,
Oh, okay.
but you can tell looking at it by the color of it. So what would you think if it was real dark?
Probably good.
Real good, yeah. Real light?
Okay.
Not very good.
Okay.
I mean, it's still good to use, but the darker it is, you seen humus or organic matter,
Mhm.
you know, you buy it out of the stores, it's real dark.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Then the percent nitrogen, sometimes we get 3%, up to 3% on nitrogen out of it, so that's good. And then phosphorus and carbon is in the dry materials, so when you're putting stuff in there, especially like you mentioned the hay, using hay, if you use dry hay, it's got a lot of phosphorus in there. It's what happens when we go out and bale a hay patch. We cut it off and we take, the phosphorus is in the plants, it's in the roots too, but we take a lot of that off and that's where we go back and fertilize again with phosphorus and potash. So, yeah, the brown stuff's gonna, and the pH scale would be better if it's anywhere from 6 to 8, 7's neutral. So, and you can test the pH too, they make those little meters you stick around, test the soil temperature and the pH. Alright, so here's a troubleshooting guide. This is probably the page you need to pay most attention to whenever you're doing your compost pile. So, what if it got a bad odor? It smelled like rotten eggs or rotten meat or, yep, not enough air. So we need to turn it. Make sure the material in the pile is not too wet. If it's too wet, you gotta turn that air out. Alright, so what if it's not breaking down and the center of the pile is dry and not heating up? Need more water. Yep. So moisten it, turn the pile as you're moistening it, wet it, turn it, wet it, turn it. Like I said, it's gonna take a lot more time than it is money. So if you're active, this is a good way to get some exercise. Alright, so the compost is damp, sweet smelling, but it won't heat up. We don't have enough green in there. We've got too much brown. So we need to put some green back in there. Or get some fertilizer from the store, nitrogen, and sprinkle it on there. But if you can ask, if you got grass clippings or green hay or kitchen scraps or whatever, put that in there, and that's gonna solve that problem. And then the compost is damp and warm only in the middle. That means you don't have a big enough compost pile. Make it bigger. Like I said, if you get it, if it's just a pile out there on the ground by itself, make sure it's at least 5 foot at the base and 3 foot high or more. If you're using bins, if you're just using one bin, just make sure it's a 4x4 by 4 or 4x4 by 3. Make sure you got plenty of room and we're gonna get plenty of air. If you're using 3 bins, make them the same size. Yep. All right. Any questions? Y'all have some good questions. Yes.
When it's finished, is that gonna feel and smell like soil or?
It'll have a little smell bit over to it.
It smell like,
Yeah.
Wood,
Have you ever plowed a field and smelled plowed dirt?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's
That's
gonna
what
smell
I
like.
mean, yeah.
Yeah. It's got a good smell to it. A sweet aroma. Yeah. Good compost. Yeah. If you go out there and smell like rotten eggs, yeah.
I thought
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was picking that up.
Is it good to add worms to them, like just go to like a bake
Oh,
shop?
that's what I was fixing to say. If you don't want to mess with this compost pile,
That's great. And you can still turn them.
get you some earthworms. Put out there in your garden. But no, don't add eggs, worms to the compost pile.
You gotta add
No.
worms.
He's up too high, he'd kill them.
Oh, okay. That would be.
But you can add earthworms to your garden spot.
Yeah.
And one of the best manures, we talked about manures a while ago, is worm castings. I'll just tell you a little story before we go. You got time for 2 minutes?
Yeah, take your time.
So
When I first got, I'm sorry, go ahead.
you just said add worm castings to
Soil.
the soil, not the
not
compost. Okay. Okay,
No,
sorry.
put it directly on the soil.
Okay.
When I first got married back in 1984, back home in Eastland County, me and my wife had to find a place to live, and so we rented a house, and behind it, the guy had a worm farm there for about 5 years. I didn't think nothing about it at all. I went out there, tilled it up, put me a garden in there, and I swear that thing grew 2 foot a night. I mean, it just took off. I had black-eyed peas that tall.
Wow.
I had corn that you couldn't even reach the top of it.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's a pretty good sized little area. And I didn't put no fertilizer on it, nothing. And of course, I guess I was too stupid to know about worm castings at the time. But my dad said, Jimmy, the guy that had the worm farm there, had a worm farm there a couple of years ago. He said, that's what it is. He said, they made compost out of the soil, okay?
So just get worms.
So that,
Like a worm farm.
this will do the same thing. This compost will do the same thing worms do, but in a pile. But my opinion is the worms are better. But you can't spray anything. insecticide, you need pesticides.
Too.
You need to, use something like diatomaceous earth or some kind of soap remedy, you know? But soap, soda water, not soda water, baking soda. Anyway, yeah. So, worm catchers are really good, and earthworms are even better. Because they're the ones making the poop. Worm poop. Any more questions?
What about, cedar or pine needles in the winter when you need green stuff? Is that the same as green grass?
No, it's not. It's too dry. No moisture.
That's one
Yeah.
stuff.
It'd probably work for brown, for the brown stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think it works for green. It's just not not enough moisture content. Yeah. It might, in the spring when
That's the important part of the green, is having moisture with it.
well, that's chlorophyll. That's a different deal. The reason those will stay green is because of chlorophyll.
Well, I mean, if it's still green though, it's gonna have more moisture too, probably.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's going to have some moisture. Right. Yeah. But when you're talking about cedars and junipers, there's not much moisture in those
Yeah,
needles.
but the green, they don't have any chlorophyll.
They just stay green for you. There's not much moisture there.
I have some of those turning bins that I've already been putting the chicken poop and wood shavings in. And when I open up the little thing, it's very humid in it. And I have noticed that it's kind of getting more compact. So is that an indication of a good environment, or?
Now, what did you have?
It's basically chicken poop and the wood shavings.
What's it in?
Those little turning bins.
Oh, the tunnel.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's a point that you have to quit toning,
mhm,
turn it, and it's ready.
okay.
So, look at it, see how hot it is, see how much decomposition is taking place. If it's real fine and it smells good and it's not too hot, then it's probably good to go.
Okay,
But if it's wet, if it's hot, if it stinks, then you probably need to turn it, get some air in it.
okay,
Even more than maybe open it up and stir it by hand, I don't know. Or turn it a lot more,
yeah, okay.
you'll need air. Like I said a while ago, it's just visual and smell, I mean,
Mhm,
and feel.
mhm,
You kind of determine what stage your compost pile's
okay.
at. I'll see if I have any cards. I got some I can pick up.
All right, well, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Marty.
Oh, you're welcome.
I
Thanks for having me.